You're listening to Good Mic Work Commentaries, hosted by Greg Morgan, a pro wrestling podcast for adults, discussing the fun, wild, and sometimes insane world of professional wrestling.
What's going on, everybody? Good Mic Work Commentaries back at you with episode 505, coming at you again kind of late in the week. That's primarily due to the fact that I've had a lot of videos uploaded to the channel this week. The YouTube channel has been very, very busy. There's been a lot going on, and I wanted to come up here tonight just to kind of gloss over this past weekend's wrestling shows, talk about NXT TakeOver, talk about Money in the Bank and Raw and Smackdown. We're not going to talk about everything. We're only going to talk about the major stuff that went down on all four of those shows. Most of the topics that we're going to discuss here today are listed right on the left-hand side of the screen there. There might be one or two others, but for the most part, that's what we're going to get into today. For those of you who have been following the channel this week, you do know by now that I have finally debuted the series that I was talking about over the past couple of weeks called The One-Off, where I am going to dedicate one YouTube video to just one subject. And I figured I would save those for big news stories, WWE releases, wrestling deaths, anything like that is kind of what that series is going to be used for. And on back-to-back days, we had two pretty big stories to talk about. It's well known by now, but just in case you have been living under a rock, WWE did release Big Cass from his WWE contract on Tuesday at the Smackdown tapings, and on Monday, unfortunately, Leon White, aka Big Van Vader, passed away, and we got the news of that on Wednesday. So I was up here on Tuesday and Wednesday, back-to-back one-off episodes discussing both of those subjects. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Big Cass's release and Vader's death, the link is right up there in the top right-hand corner of the screen, or you can head over to the YouTube channel and check it out there. And for those of you asking, those one-off videos are going to be YouTube exclusives. I don't have any plans, at least right now, to make those available in podcast form or download, primarily because they're mostly going to be short. If I happen to do one that goes 30, 45 minutes, or maybe even an hour, then maybe I'll make that available for download. But for the most part, expect those to be YouTube exclusive. We've got some pretty exciting news on the channel as well. We are about to hit 20,000 subscribers. Should get there in a couple of days. As of the recording of this podcast, we're about 150 or so subscribers away, and I usually get that many every Monday night when I do my live Raw streams. So most likely by this Monday, we will hit the 20,000 subscriber plateau on the channel, and that is awesome, and I want to give you guys an early thank you in advance for all of your wonderful support. And if for any reason you have not subscribed to me yet and you're listening to me without being a subscriber, click that subscribe button. It takes you 1 second to do. Also, click that little bell so you can get notifications, because YouTube has been an asshole lately. All sorts of problems with YouTube. A lot of YouTubers have been talking about it and complaining about it, and it's really becoming an issue how YouTube is distributing smaller channels' content out there to their fan base. So clicking that bell is very, very essential if you want to keep track of what I am doing over here on this channel. As far as what we're going to get into in this episode, like I said, most of the topics are listed right there on the screen. I'm going to talk a little bit about NXT TakeOver first, then we'll move into a few thoughts on Money in the Bank, and then we'll talk about two very good Raw and Smackdown shows this week. Raw really bounced back from a good solid month of sucking, and Smackdown was a phenomenal show. So I was really happy with the 4 days of TV. NXT TakeOver was fucking amazing. Money in the Bank was a solid show. Raw was a solid show, and Smackdown was very, very good. So we got a lot to get into. Why don't we start with NXT TakeOver? Like I said, I'm just going to gloss over this pay-per-view. These takeovers never disappoint. I mean, how many years have I been coming up here doing commentaries now where I'll discuss a takeover and I say the same thing every time? Phenomenal show. At least one match of the year candidate is usually on a card like this, and it also is a candidate for show of the year. The wrestling on this card was amazing. I thought this had a chance to be one of the weaker takeovers. I mean, the card wasn't bad by any means, but you know, it didn't stand out like some other TakeOver cards have in the past, and we weren't even going to have Mauro Ranallo for this show either. He was already pre-booked for Showtime or whatever his other contract is. I think it was getting in the way of him calling TakeOver, so he wasn't able to, but you really didn't notice. I mean, you noticed, but the show was still just as good without him, and that's a tribute to how hard those wrestlers fucking work. Now, one of my favorite matches on the show was the opening match, the tag team title match, which I just thought was magnificent. magnificent. And of course, Undisputed retained. However, WWE did leak and spoil that they would be dropping the tag team titles at the next set of NXT tapings. A lot of fans were really pissed off about WWE giving away that spoiler, and I understand that it's head scratching. I don't even know why WWE would do that, but at the same time, I was really surprised how angry people got. Who cares? It's one fucking set of tag team titles. Don't we have enough fucking belts in the wrestling business? I guess I'm just different than everybody else. Spoilers really do not bother me, but fans were really pissed off about WWE leaking those spoilers, but whatever. The match at TakeOver was great, and I loved the finish. Awesome shit. Ricochet and Velveteen Dream, man, that match was every bit as good as I thought it was going to be. I mentioned that in my predictions video, that I just could not wait to see the match. It's the only match on the entire TakeOver card that I predicted wrong. I thought Velveteen Dream would go over here. He's been in development a little bit longer than Ricochet in NXT, and he's already had some big TakeOver matches in which he's fallen short. He lost to Aleister Black, fell short in the ladder match at TakeOver New Orleans, I believe. So to me, it felt like he was due for a big victory. But, I'm not going to complain about Ricochet getting the victory here. The match was incredible and so fucking entertaining. So hats off to both guys there for killing themselves and putting on one hell of a match. And congrats to Ricochet for pulling off what I thought was an upset. Speaking of great finishes, like in the tag match, how about the Nicki Cross Shayna Baszler match? Damn. I wasn't expecting Nicki Cross to win the belt, but I was expecting her to be a good, fun contender for Shayna Baszler, and that's exactly what she was. And it was just great storytelling, great writing. Nicki's character, she played right into that during the match. I mean, she was kind of outmatched. Baszler was kind of kicking her ass a little bit, but Nicki is crazy. She doesn't give a shit. She laughs and smiles and giggles through the whole thing. And even the finish when Baszler is choking her out, I loved the ending. It made the shorter match kind of okay. I think if you were going to judge the in-ring work of the entire card, this probably would be the worst match on the show, but the finish made it one of the most memorable things that we saw when Baszler was choking out Nicki Cross, and she was smiling and laughing until she just passed out. So she didn't tap out, she literally giggled herself to sleep, and I fucking loved the finish of that match. And hopefully, they may work again. I'm not really sure what the direction with those two will be. We had the NXT title match up next. That match did not main event the show. The main event would go to Ciampa and Gargano for the second takeover in a row, but Aleister Black retained the title in a great, brutal match with Lars Sullivan. I was really impressed with Lars Sullivan. I've always liked the guy, but I wasn't sure if I really saw in him what WWE is seeing in him, but after his performance against Aleister Black, if he's this good now, if he's putting on matches of this caliber now in his career, imagine where he's going to be 3 to 5 years from now. You know what I mean? So I was really happy with that match, and it pleasantly surprised me. I did not think it would be as good as it turned out to be. And Aleister Black retaining was not a huge surprise to me either, because he just recently won the belt. He's on a run here, and I don't think it's time to take it off of him just yet. And as much as I don't watch NXT, I'm really bad at keeping up with NXT on a regular basis. So even somebody like me with limited NXT knowledge, in the back of my head, I have already had Tommaso Ciampa in line as Aleister Black's next opponent. So that's kind of why I was not expecting Lars Sullivan to win. I think if you move on to Ciampa and Black feud, it can be magical. And speaking of Tommaso Ciampa, he did win the street fight in one of the craziest matches I've ever seen. I want to ask your opinion on this. What do you guys think as it compares to their New Orleans match? Do you think it was better or worse? The same? I don't know. I think I was just blown away by both matches. There was so much going on in both matches. It's hard for me to really just judge them side by side because there were so many moments and so many crazy spots in the matches. I'm fucking forgetting some of them. So I might even have to go back and watch the New Orleans match again and then compare it with this one. But either way, these two guys have been probably the best thing we've ever seen in NXT as far as a good, personal, heat-filled storyline that's written well, that's booked properly, and that it stretches out. I mean, it's this long arcing storyline. Granted, Ciampa's injury kind of played into why this has been going on for a year, and now it does look like Tommaso Ciampa will be next in line to challenge Aleister Black, and I think that's going to be one hell of a fucking feud. Let's move on to Money in the Bank now and discuss a little bit of this show. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I did come up after Money in the Bank on Sunday night, episode 504, for a live stream. As a matter of fact, I even came up early and live reacted to the last two matches on the card. So if you want to see my live reaction and some discussion and thoughts after the pay-per-view, the link is also up there in the top right-hand corner, so you can check that out. Let's start with the men's Money in the Bank match. Braun Strowman took the briefcase in this. That surprised me. I'm a big Braun Strowman mark. You guys know that. He's dominant in every single thing that he does, but for some reason, I did not predict him to win this match. I just didn't think he really, quote-unquote, needed the briefcase. That's something that we heard all fucking weekend long. Who needs the briefcase and who deserves the briefcase and shit like that. But this was a case where I thought Strowman, based on the level of his character and a spot on the card, doesn't really need a briefcase to get a championship match. I thought he could easily face Brock at SummerSlam or face whoever the champion is later on this year without needing a briefcase to cash in. You know what I mean? So I kind of ruled him out. I thought it would be much better suited for somebody like The Miz, who can take advantage of an opportunity, maybe on Daniel Bryan in the future, or maybe at WrestleMania next year. Whoever wins the briefcase, I was thinking they would hold on to it for a long time. But a guy like Strowman, his character and who he is, his personality, he's just not the type of guy that I think is going to want to hang on to this thing for months and months and months, picking his spot and trying to take advantage of the best situation possible. That's not really his gimmick. He's the type of guy that's going to say, I want to cash this thing in right now, even if Brock Lesnar's not here. I proposed in the live stream that Strowman goes to Brock Lesnar's house, knocks on his front door, walks in the backyard, sits on his back deck, fires up the grill and eats a steak and waits for Brock Lesnar to get home so he can challenge him for the title right there in the backyard. Strowman seems like the type of guy that would want to cash that thing in as soon as humanly possible. So I'm surprised that they put the briefcase with him, considering what we saw with Alexa. And that means we're not going to really have... I can't imagine Strowman holding onto this briefcase for very long. He might hold it for a little bit, but he's going to cough that thing up sooner rather than later, I would guess. So I guess part of me was hoping we would have a briefcase holder that would stretch it out, that would hold the briefcase for months and months and months and months, and maybe even cash in at WrestleMania. But Strowman's got it instead. He definitely will be entertaining with it, although I'm going to get really sick and tired of hearing WWE refer to him as Monster in the Bank. WWE, you can suck my dick with that shit. Stop it. You are going to ruin Braun Strowman with this nonsense. Monster in the Bank, Monster in the Bank, Monster in the Bank. We're going to have to hear Michael Cole say this shit 25 fucking times every single Monday night on Raw. And that sucks because we don't need anything taking away from the awesomeness of Braun Strowman. So WWE, stop hammering this shit and cramming this shit down our throats, please. We don't need it. If you want to call him Monster in the Bank once or twice to be funny, fine. The ring announcers don't need to announce him as the Monster in the Bank. Stop over fucking doing it. Jesus, WWE. But luckily, based on who Strowman is, like I said, I think he's going to want to get rid of that briefcase as soon as he can. The minute Brock Lesnar shows up on TV, I would expect Braun Strowman's character to come out there and say, I want to cash this in right now, which might increase the likelihood of Brock Lesnar maybe dropping the belt on Raw, as long as he's been back in the WWE. How long has he been back now? 6.5 years? He has still not wrestled one single time on Monday Night Raw. So if I'm just going to be throwing out a lot of ideas throughout this podcast, so just bear with me here. Let's say the rumored match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns does happen at SummerSlam. I'm starting to think that maybe it won't now, but let's just say they go with that, okay? I was asking you guys in my last podcast that do you think it would be okay if Roman Reigns got the title shot and won the match, but the briefcase holder then came down and stole the title from him? Maybe that's a way for them to do it. I don't know. We'll probably talk a little bit more about the main event situation on Raw here in a little bit because we have big news on Extreme Rules and who might actually face Brock. We had AJ Styles retained the WWE title against Shinsuke Nakamura in the last man standing match. The closer we got to this pay-per-view, the more I was starting to sense that AJ was going to retain. I just started to think that maybe WWE is just not going to put the belt on Shinsuke. I predicted him to win because I predicted him to win every match these guys had. But I guess the plan was never really to have him win the WWE title. And they kind of put some stuff in motion the week before on Smackdown when he wrestled Jeff Hardy and nutshotted him. And that was the first thing that tipped me off. I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised at all if Shinsuke comes up short in the WWE title match if they move him on to Jeff Hardy and he eventually wins the United States title instead. So there are some fans that are very disappointed about it. Me, I thought it was a pretty good feud. Yes, I know it was booked not quite the way some fans would like. Some fans even think the reason he didn't win the belt is because he's lost too many times before and now he's ruined or buried. And I completely dismiss that theory. I think wrestling fans take these basic generic arguments and they try to apply them to every single situation. Sometimes they work. Sometimes that's actually the case. But with this, I think it's just a matter of Shinsuke Nakamura was not going to be WWE champion. I don't think WWE had plans to put the belt on him, but then they felt in the matches he got buried. Oh, we better not put the belt on a buried guy. No. That's not what happened. I just think that it was a long, storied feud for AJ Styles in the WWE for the title, a guy that he has history with in other promotions. It was fun. They had a lot of good matches. They have 5 matches, something like that on pay-per-view, whatever it was. It took a long time to run its course, and not every fan was happy with the way it was booked. To me, there's nothing wrong with Shinsuke Nakamura not being able to take the WWE title off the best wrestler in the world. It's not a big deal. I would have loved to see Shinsuke Nakamura as WWE champion. I will fully admit that. Especially him working as a heel. He's been so entertaining and he's been so much better. Remember when he came onto the main roster as a babyface? He didn't feel as special as he did in NXT, and that's the case with so many guys that come to the main roster. But Shinsuke is still on the top of the card. He's been given multiple title shots. He worked against Randy Orton. He worked against Jinder Mahal for the title, and now against AJ Styles. He's been given every opportunity. He just never won the belt. So instead of automatically judging WWE, oh, they fucked up Shinsuke Nakamura, I don't really see it like that. I think they weren't going to put the title on him anyway. So now he's going to be United States champion instead. I am 1,000,000% convinced that he will beat Jeff Hardy for the United States title, and he'll make a good U.S. champion. I'm in agreement with people who are disappointed that Shinsuke Nakamura didn't win the title. Of course, I'm right there with you. I agree 100%. I'm disappointed too. But I don't think this is a case of WWE mismanaging Shinsuke Nakamura to where they changed their mind and did not put the belt on him. I just don't think that's the case here. In some instances, that's the case. Some guys are fucked around with so long that they just get ruined. I don't believe that is the case with Shinsuke Nakamura. And think about this. You know how I mentioned earlier on about the fans judging everything on the surface and not really thinking it through? Well, what if the reason Shinsuke Nakamura didn't win the WWE title is because WWE has bigger plans involving AJ Styles? And recently, when Brock Lesnar surpassed CM Punk's title run and kind of broke that modern day record that CM Punk held, the fans hated it. They said it was bullshit. They said it doesn't count because Brock Lesnar never wrestles on TV. He never defends the belt. He's not on house shows. He's never around. He's defended the belt 5 times in like 15 months or something like that, where CM Punk was there each and every single week. And on top of that, Brock Lesnar has the Universal title, not the WWE title. So there's all of these little asterisks in the fans' head as to why CM Punk's run really shouldn't be broken by Brock Lesnar. Okay, fine. Point taken. What if AJ Styles does it? Think about it. AJ Styles has already had the belt for a pretty good amount of time here. AJ and Punk both won the WWE title during the same time of the year, too. I think they both won it in November. So all AJ really has to do here is survive until the Royal Rumble. And the evidence is there right now. He's wrestling Rusev at Extreme Rules, which is awesome, but also very, very random. So what if they put AJ on this long run here with the title where he successfully defends the title pay-per-view after pay-per-view and actually beats the title run record that CM Punk had? AJ Styles would be much more credible in that position than Brock Lesnar, and it would be another way for WWE to stick it to CM Punk. So what if the plan is for AJ Styles to hold the belt until the Royal Rumble, which should be enough time for him to break CM Punk's run there? And then you can set him up in a one-on-one match with somebody like, let's say, The Miz. What if The Miz beats AJ Styles and wins the WWE title at the Royal Rumble? Who do you think the perfect guy to win the Royal Rumble would be if that match actually happens and Miz becomes champion? What's that guy's name again? Bryan Daniels, something like that? Yeah, that guy, the yes guy, right? He's the one that should win the Royal Rumble. Given all the history with Daniel Bryan and the Royal Rumble, it would certainly be a very full circle moment for him for all of the crazy shit that we've seen involving Daniel Bryan in Royal Rumbles and the fans having the carpet yanked out from under them more than once. And even this past year in Saudi Arabia at the greatest Royal Rumble, Daniel Bryan was in there for like an hour. So Daniel Bryan would be a really good candidate to win the Royal Rumble match. And if you have Miz as champion, there you go. Miz, Daniel Bryan head-to-head at WrestleMania, MetLife Stadium. You think the crowd wouldn't pop for that fucking victory by Daniel Bryan? So there's lots that they can do here. I would like to see Daniel Bryan and AJ work for the belt too. SummerSlam is very much up in the air as to what AJ Styles is going to do. Maybe he's going to just have a one-off with Rusev and then move on to a bigger opponent at SummerSlam like a Daniel Bryan or somebody like that, or they could actually have AJ hold the belt all this time, which if that happens, you would look back and say, okay, now I understand why Shinsuke Nakamura didn't win the belt. If the scenario I just laid out actually takes place, granted, it's a long shot that the WWE is going to do that and keep the belt on AJ Styles until the Royal Rumble. Plus, the guy's got to stay healthy too. So there's a lot of factors and a lot of what ifs here. But if that does indeed happen, I think you would have to look back at the Shinsuke Nakamura feud and now understand why Shinsuke didn't win instead of freaking out thinking WWE dropped the ball and they should have put the belt on him. It would be fine with me if AJ held the WWE title for as long as possible. So just something to keep in mind. And speaking of controversial endings to title matches, why don't we talk about Carmella and Asuka next? I predicted Carmella to win this match against Asuka at Money in the Bank. I did not think that Asuka was going to win the title just yet, and I think it's more about building Carmella as a shitty heel than it is about building Asuka as champion right now. I think they can hold that off, and given what we saw Alexa do later on in the show, you know, that's my big issue here. Fans are infuriated about this match. Everybody thinks that it was a huge mistake to not put Asuka over here. It's not like Carmella beat her clean. James Ellsworth returned and helped out. His return was actually leaked. We knew that he was in the building. We knew he could potentially appear in this match. I thought maybe he would come out and help Asuka. I thought the Iconics were going to get involved. I thought they would run in to try to help Carmella, and then James Ellsworth would come, even up the odds, and help Asuka win the belt. That's kind of the way I thought it was going to go. But Ellsworth came up on the ring apron dressed as Asuka, takes off the mask, and gives that hilarious wink into the camera, which is just enough to distract Asuka, and Carmella winds up pinning her and retaining the title. And I thought that was perfectly fine. Everybody keeps saying that Asuka was ruined. I'm so sick of hearing this. She was ruined at WrestleMania too. The problem with the fans is they're so fucking entitled. They want everything to happen right now. They think that they know better. They think they know the way shit should be booked. When, if you just look at the situation, let's, for argument's sake, let's say WWE goes with what you want, okay? So let's say Asuka beat Carmella in that match. We never saw James Ellsworth. She just made Carmella tap out in 5 minutes, held up the belt, celebrated the whole deal, right? Then later on in the show, we see Alexa Bliss win the briefcase, and then we have the awesome Nia Jax versus Ronda Rousey match where Alexa cashes in, and that is a huge, I mean, that blew up the internet. After what we saw Alexa Bliss do, not only winning the briefcase, another match that was very controversial. A lot of people felt like Alexa didn't deserve the briefcase. This thing is not a fucking championship. It's a green goddamn suitcase, okay? There's no right or wrong person for the briefcase to be with. I wish fans would stop overanalyzing shit so much. But given what we saw Alexa do, the way she came in and surprised everybody and swerved everybody and won the title, don't you think that that kind of overshadows Asuka's moment? If Asuka were to have won the belt from Carmella, we would have forgotten all about her victory because everything was about Alexa. That was the big story there. So to me, I look at this as simply a situation of WWE not wanting to have Asuka's crowning moment come in the middle of a show where it's going to be forgotten about and lost in the shuffle of all of the other crazy shit going on at Money in the Bank. And now if you look at where the storyline went on Monday Night Raw, Ronda Rousey is suspended for 30 days. She's not going to be at Extreme Rules. And if you look at what happened on SmackDown, lo and behold, Carmella and Asuka continued their feud on SmackDown, which means Carmella will most likely have to defend her title again against Asuka at Extreme Rules. I wouldn't even be surprised if we get an Asuka versus James Ellsworth match on SmackDown one-on-one. How much you want to bet that WWE will do Asuka versus James Ellsworth on SmackDown? If Asuka wins, she gets to face Carmella for the belt at Extreme Rules. How much you want to bet they'll do that? They're going to do something like that to where Asuka will earn another match and maybe she gets the title there. And I've been saying all along to keep an eye out for SummerSlam. I think you can do Charlotte and Asuka 2 at SummerSlam, and you can have Asuka get her victory back. Maybe if she does wind up beating Carmella, she goes into SummerSlam as champion, much like Charlotte went into WrestleMania as champion, and this time she taps Charlotte out. So either way here, I think Asuka is going to have her day. But all this shit about, oh, it's taking too long, now she's ruined, it's too little too late now, go fucking piss up a rope. I think fans look way too deep into shit when the answer is simply right there on the surface. To give Asuka the belt and the victory against Carmella at Money in the Bank would have gotten lost in all of the other bullshit, especially what was going on in the women's division on Raw. Now, with Ronda Rousey being suspended, the SmackDown women's title can be the big women's match at Extreme Rules, and that can be, or that might be a better place choice, I should say, to put the belt on Asuka. Or you can hold it off to SummerSlam and do it there. Whether she wrestles Carmella again, or whether or not she has a three-way and Charlotte is involved, or we do get that one-on-one match with Asuka and Charlotte, whatever the hell they do, I expect Asuka to be WWE Women's Champion on SmackDown this summer. So I think the fans just need to exhibit a little bit of patience. And I know there's some times that a wrestler loses too often, and then it feels like they're ruined and there's no coming back for it. Guys like Rusev and Bray Wyatt, certain guys like that, there's some truth to that. But in these specific cases, I think fans are applying, like I said, those generic arguments, and they're trying to make them fit. It's putting a square peg in a round hole. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to wedge this logic in there. They're trying to be way too analytical and just way too entitled, I guess is the right word. When if you just look at it a little bit, it makes a lot of sense why Asuka didn't win the belt at Money in the Bank. They're just dragging it out. The argument could also be made that why give Asuka the title match in the first place if you're not going to have her win it? I can see that, but that was probably a way to build more heat for Carmella. I mentioned the Jericho comparison. I've mentioned that in like the last 5 commentaries in a row. Remember when Jericho beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in the same night? He didn't shut the fuck up about it for 15 years. Carmella can now do the same thing, beating Charlotte and Asuka, the two most dominant females arguably in WWE history. She beat them on back-to-back pay-per-views. And in the end, if Asuka winds up tearing her fucking leg off and beating her for the title, what's the difference if she did it Money in the Bank or Extreme Rules? So I think fans just need to untangle their panties, take a deep breath, take your lithium, and have an Eskimo pie. Chill the fuck out. And I mentioned Alexa Bliss a minute ago. She did, of course, win the Money in the Bank briefcase match on the women's side. I picked Natalya. I thought Natalya could tie in with a really cool heel turn with Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax, but that didn't happen. They gave it to Alexa again. Fans were all pissed. Oh, she's already had her moment. She's already had a chance. Give it to somebody else. Well, the only people in that match that really haven't had a chance was Ember Moon and Lana. Now, Lana would have been a fine choice for a briefcase because that's who I think briefcases should be reserved for. Talent that wouldn't otherwise get an opportunity. They've got a briefcase now, and it's a good way to elevate them. That's why I didn't think Charlotte was going to win the briefcase, and that's why I was surprised that Braun Strowman did. But really, at the end of the day, when you look at the female participants in that match, it doesn't matter who wins it. Jesus, I could not believe how upset people were getting. Oh, what a fucking pile of shit. So stupid, so dumb. And then if you fast forward to the Nia Jax Ronda Rousey match, it made for a pretty entertaining swerve in that match. And let me just say, hats off to Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey for their work in that match. That might have been my favorite match on the pay-per-view. It was so good. I was so nervous that Ronda Rousey was going to be in front of that hostile crowd in Chicago. I was praying that things were going to go well for her, and they did. She worked her ass off. I mean, now fans are nitpicking this match too. Now fans are complaining. Get this. This is the latest shit. This is the latest nonsense I heard about this match. Now it's a problem because all of these little armchair quarterback bookers criticizing every single fucking thing they see on TV now think that Ronda Rousey sold too much. She shouldn't have sold that much, where I was just impressed with her selling ability. I mean, Ronda Rousey has taken this shit seriously. She was working her ass off, and she's gritty, and she's dirty. When she gets in there and fights, she did everything 100%. Every single thing she did, she put 100% effort into. She never once was out there looking like she was going through the motions. She had very believable offense. She told a great story, battling the larger woman by selling her ass off for Nia Jax, getting bounced around and thrown around and powerbombed and all of that shit. She was taking some hellacious bumps. Her face was all sweaty, and she was a mess, and she looked like she was really in the fight of her life out there. And that's one thing that we don't see with some of these other female wrestlers. Somebody like Sasha Banks, who's so much outfit. She's so much glitz and glamour and sunglasses and the long hair and the extensions. She doesn't come across as like a gritty fighter. She's a great little worker. She's had some, awesome matches, but she doesn't come across as somebody that can just fucking kill you. Ronda Rousey was out there looking like she was fighting for her life. Charlotte is like that too. Even though Charlotte is very done up and very prettied up and all that stuff, Charlotte, when she's rolling, she can really get intense in there, and she's given every match she's in 100% effort. And I saw a lot of that in Ronda Rousey. All of her, like I said, all of her offense was good. Her selling was good. Her timing, her instincts, her mannerisms, everything in there that she was doing did not look like someone to me who's been in wrestling for, like a year. I would have thought she's been in wrestling school and in NXT for the last 3-4 years with some of the shit she was doing in there. So her UFC career really shined through there. there. Ronda Rousey is a very athletic person. She knows how to train. She knows how to take something seriously, and she knows how to dedicate her life to her craft, and she certainly is putting in the time here in the wrestling ring. Now, she's got a lot of work to do on the mic. She's not The Rock on the mic. Everybody knows that, and there's a lot of things about her character and her personality microphone-wise that really needs a lot of work. But as far as what she can do in the ring and what she's capable of, I've let out a big sigh of relief after the very entertaining match at WrestleMania, and now this really good outing versus Nia Jax. I'm no longer worried about Ronda Rousey being able to perform in the ring. I know she's going to be able to. What we need to work on now is getting her a little bit better on the mic and developing her character on screen a little bit more, because in the ring, that bitch can go. And we were all wondering how they were going to get out of that match with Nia Jax. I predicted Rousey to win the belt. I thought WWE would want to have her and Brock Lesnar being champions at the same time. I thought they might want to have Ronda Rousey as champion as she gets inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in a couple of weeks. But if they weren't going to put the belt on her, I was curious on how they were going to get out of it, and a cash-in or a heel turn was one option. A lot of people were saying Alexa should cash in tonight, or whoever wins the briefcase should cash in tonight, and I was dismissing it. I did not think we were going to see that. I thought we might see Natalya come out and turn heel, or Stephanie get involved, or something to screw up the match. And when Alexa showed up and she hit the ring, and she nailed the girls with the briefcase, and then I think the match actually ended. It got one of them. It got Nia Jax disqualified, I believe. Then the match was restarted, Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss, and she was able to beat her and win the belt. And I thought it was a great moment. A lot of people didn't like the fact that Alexa Bliss won the title, but I thought it was a fun moment, a surprising moment, and it gives this little bitchy heel another run with the title, and kind of coming full circle with her long rivalry with Nia Jax. That shit goes back months. So I thought it was all in all a perfectly fine moment. I didn't have any issue with it at all. Why don't we move on now to Monday Night Raw, talk about that. I won't spend much time on that, but I will start with what Raw opened with. We just talked about Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey and how Alexa Bliss cashed in. Well, she had a big celebration. She had the whole ring decorated. Kurt Angle was out there to announce Alexa Bliss. He presented her the women's title, and she's out there cutting a promo. She's very smug. She's very happy, and she's bragging her ass off, of course. Nia Jax, it was announced that she wasn't in the building. She was getting rehab or something like that, nursing some injury for the night before. I don't remember what the story was. During Alexa's promo, that's when Ronda Rousey hit the ring. Her music played, and she starts power walking down to the ring. And I was up on YouTube doing a live stream during Raw, and I was really liking what I was seeing. I'm like, there you go. That's the Ronda Rousey I want to see. I don't want to see Ronda Rousey smile on her way to the ring after she got fucked over by Alexa Bliss. I did not want to see her coming out there hugging the babies and high-fiving the fans, smiling, getting on the mic and cutting a stupid-ass promo with Kurt Angle. Hey, Kurt, Mr. Angle, Mr. General Manager, is it okay if maybe, I don't know, if you have time, can you maybe give me a rematch against Alexa Bliss? Gee, that would be really swell. No, she didn't do that. She stormed to the ring, got right in the ring, ran over Kurt Angle, grabbed the briefcase, and just started beating the shit out of Alexa with it, and she even hit Kurt Angle. She started wearing his ass out with the briefcase. Security comes in the ring, or a bunch of referees come in the ring, I should say, and she beats the shit out of all of them too, and just starts destroying Alexa Bliss. Beats up referees, beats up Kurt Angle, hammers Alexa Bliss into the ground or into the mat with the briefcase, and then picks her up and power bombs her through the table. And I was loving it. I was marking out. I'm like, there you go. The less mic time for Ronda Rousey, the better right now. This is the Ronda Rousey I want to see. This is what I've been saying ever since she got there. Because when we saw her in the UFC, remember her during weigh-ins? Remember when she would have weigh-ins and press conferences? She was a fucking asshole. And that's the way I want to see her being. I want to see her come out there and take no shit from Little Biscuit Butt. Oh, this little bitch is going to rob me of my title, where I'm going to beat the piss out of her on national TV, where she will be lucky if she's even able to wrestle again when I'm done with her ass. So that's the type of attitude I want to see from Ronda Rousey. That's what we got on Raw. And because she beat the hell out of Alexa Bliss and a bunch of referees and the general manager backstage, Kurt Angle suspended Ronda Rousey in kayfabe for 30 days. So that's a way to kind of write her off of TV and keep her pay-per-view matches a little bit more infrequent right now, and that will set her up for a really big match at SummerSlam, which means Extreme Rules is wide open for Alexa Bliss to most likely have a rematch with Nia Jax, and possibly for Asuka to win the women's title from Carmella on that show. So keep a lookout for that for everybody that's been freaking out about Asuka. Speaking of Kurt Angle, later on in the night, after he was done licking his wounds from the ass kicking from Ronda Rousey, he comes out there to cut a promo and announce that he's going to make a multi-man #1 contenders match at Extreme Rules. He did not say how many people were going to be in this match. Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley both came out there and crashed the promo and pleaded their case that they should be the one to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. And that's when Kurt Angle said, I'm going to announce all the participants of the match at Extreme Rules at a later date, but I will tell you that both of you will be involved in it. So I kind of like that for Lashley and Roman. They might be two guys to really put together, not as a tag team or anything, but as opponents. And of course, because they're both baby faces, we would see them in a tag team encounter later on. For some reason, the Revival came out there to cut a promo that was pretty much just a device used to get Roman and Lashley in a tag team match, and Kurt Angle makes the match, and Roman and Lashley, of course, destroy the Revival. But the two of them will be in whatever match they're going to have at Extreme Rules. And I don't know what the rules are, if it's going to be a six-pack challenge, a fatal four-way, an elimination match, what's the other one's called, a tornado match, or whatever the fuck, gauntlet match even. Who knows what they're going to do here. All we know is there's going to be a few guys in it, and I'm going to get into who some of those other participants might be. One of those participants will not be Sami Zayn. I guess I should bring this up now, actually, because it was reported that Sami Zayn will be out of action now until next year. He's going to be gone for the duration of 2018. Apparently, he's got 2 torn rotator cuffs, and he needs a couple of surgeries, one of which I think he's already had. And WWE did make the announcement that he is out of action, and that's a shame. However, in some cases, injuries are not the worst thing in the world. I feel terrible for Sami Zayn that he's got to go through this and rehab and all of that, but really, a break from TV is not going to hurt Sami Zayn's character. If he comes back in a few months, maybe returns at the Royal Rumble, has time to set something up with Kevin Owens for WrestleMania, he can really bounce back from all the bullshit he was doing with Bobby Lashley. So I wish Sami Zayn nothing but the best. And speaking of Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns, they're going to be in this multi-man match at Extreme Rules. If neither one of those two guys win that match and go on to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, they could face each other at SummerSlam. And given what we saw on Raw with a tag team match with the Revival and Bobby Lashley kind of tagging himself in, wouldn't be surprised at all that if they for some reason decide not to give Roman Reigns the title shot against Brock, which I'm really hoping they don't do, they will probably put him with Bobby Lashley instead. Which begs the question, if they are set on a collision course for SummerSlam, who wins this match at Extreme Rules and who goes on to face Brock at SummerSlam? Who are the participants going to be in this match? One of them might be Seth Rollins. Because guess what? Huge news on Monday Night Raw. Big surprising news. Seth Rollins lost the Intercontinental title to Dolph Ziggler. Seth Rollins was successful in a really good match at Money in the Bank against Elias. I did not mention that match earlier on, but it was a very good Intercontinental title match. And a lot of fans were pissed at that match too, because Elias didn't win, and oh my god, what are they doing? But when you look at the finish of that match, Seth Rollins got lucky. He rolled up Elias and held his tights. So he kind of got a cheap win there. So the issue with Elias and him challenging for the Intercontinental title is not done. However, it changes a lot now because Dolph Ziggler beat Seth Rollins on Raw for the IC belt. Seth issued an open challenge. Dolph Ziggler accepted, and I was happy to see the match because I thought it would just be a really good, solid match for Seth Rollins to win and retain the Intercontinental title in another title defense. Drew McIntyre was out there with Dolph Ziggler as well, and Dolph Ziggler scored the upset victory there, and it was really surprising. A lot of fans were just shocked at this, and they were pissed too. They were like, why Ziggler? Ziggler's already had his time. Like, I haven't heard this shit enough over the weekend. That fucking argument again. But Ziggler's already been champion. Give it to somebody else like Elias and blah, blah, blah. Stupid WWE booking. They don't know what they're doing. Why didn't they give it to Elias? I'll tell you why. Because if you stay tuned to Monday Night Raw, a little while later, Elias sang a song about facing Brock Lesnar. So I will bet you my middle nut that he will be in that multi-man match at Extreme Rules to potentially get a chance to face Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Now, Elias is not going to win that. I don't believe for a second that he's going to go on to SummerSlam to face Brock Lesnar, but maybe they did not want him to be Intercontinental Champion because they have plans to put him in that multi-man match. Not that you can't be Intercontinental Champion and still go in there. Maybe they just didn't want him to be, and they wanted to have an Intercontinental title defense on Extreme Rules apart from the multi-man #1 contenders match, which might have been the same reason why they took the belt off of Seth Rollins. There have even been some rumors in recent weeks that Seth Rollins, based on the work that he's doing and how hot he is right now in the company, that he could be the guy to challenge Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. And as soon as I heard that, I was immediately on board with it. I was like, yes, 100% yes. That's a match we really need to see, because Seth Rollins really is the only guy that Brock hasn't defeated, right? Brock has never defeated him one-on-one. I think he's maybe pinned him in a three-way match. Seth Rollins, of course, stole the WWE title at WrestleMania 31, and then they had that rematch. I think it was at Battleground, whatever pay-per-view it was that the Undertaker showed back up. You know, that was a Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar match. So this is a match that we have been waiting to see. I think in the ring would offer us a lot more than Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. I don't think Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns work in the ring together is necessarily bad. It's very brutal. They always put on pretty decent matches, but I think Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar will be 10 times better. Seth Rollins can bump around, he can sell his ass off, he can have that true underdog type of feel, and if WWE really wants Brock Lesnar's loss, you know, to make the crowd happy, giving it to Roman Reigns isn't going to really make them cheer all that much. So if you take Seth Rollins, a guy that's been working his ass off, he's the workhorse in the company, defending that Intercontinental title at records pace, where Brock Lesnar's sitting on his ass at home, of course all the fans are going to be behind Seth 100%. And if he is able to hit the stomp on Brock and win the title in the main event of SummerSlam, holy shit, that crowd would explode. And that's what I would like to see. So we've heard that WWE is probably going to go with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, but now in light of the announcement of the number one contenders match at Extreme Rules, I would have to guess you're looking at a minimum of 4 people here. Roman Reigns, Bobby Lashley, probably Elias based on what he said on Raw last week, and Seth Rollins. And I don't know who else. Maybe somebody else. Maybe 5 men, maybe 6 men, but I think it's going to be a minimum of 4. And if Seth Rollins comes out of that match as the winner, oh man, that's going to be great. You got to factor in wild cards as well. We don't know what the hell's going on with Jason Jordan. We don't know what the hell's going on with Dean Ambrose, and Braun Strowman is sitting there with the briefcase. And how would you book the Intercontinental title situation? Dolph Ziggler is the IC champion now. He's going to do that Shawn Michaels Diesel thing with Drew McIntyre, I would assume, for a little while, and maybe the two of them can split up, and Drew McIntyre winds up taking the belt off of Dolph Ziggler, or maybe after Extreme Rules, maybe Elias turns babyface or something. For everybody freaking out that Elias would be such a great Intercontinental champion and WWE should put the belt on him, I agree, and I think that they probably will. The Dolph Ziggler title win was head-scratching, but if you look at where they're going in the future, maybe in time it will wind up making sense. So I think the fans are way too quick to judge sometimes, and they automatically say, what the hell did WWE do that for? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's actually a reason. Crazy thought. But other than that, really nothing notable on Monday Night Raw to even discuss. Maybe the Sasha Banks-Bayley situation. I still don't know what's going on with those two. They had another tag team match, and I called their implosion on Raw because it was so stupid between their backstage promo before the match and then coming out to the ring together with the same music and hugging each other on the rampway. I'm like, oh my God, this has got to be it. It reminded me of the Mega Powers. The more two talents profess their love to each other, the more you know they're going to break up. And the Mega Powers, Randy and Hulk, they had some issues on TV. There was some dissension in the ranks. And then they get to that match on the main event. And in the promo, they're hugging and kissing and they're shaking hands every 2 seconds. I was just waiting for these two guys to fuck. And sure enough, at the end of the match, they are fighting and brawling in the backstage area. And that's what we saw after Bayley and Sasha's loss to the Riot Squad. The cameras follow them backstage and they're arguing with each other. And finally, they explode and they start fighting with each other backstage. And the funny thing is we've already seen this. They already had a backstage brawl a few weeks back. And then they were friends again. So this shit is taking way too long, to the point where I don't care what they do. I don't care who turns heel. I don't really give a shit at all. Let's talk about Smackdown next. Some of the notable things to take place on that show. I talked about Carmella and Asuka and that whole situation earlier on. Carmella had a promo on Smackdown. She was celebrating her victory. Ellsworth was out there with her. He came out to Asuka's music dressed as Asuka again, only to pull off the mask and reveal that it's him and give that creepy-ass wink that he does. And Asuka also comes out to crash the party. She starts some shit with Ellsworth, and that distracts her enough for Carmella to nail her with a super kick and grab grab her title and grab Ellsworth and get the hell out of the ring. And I mentioned earlier on that I wouldn't be surprised at all if next week on SmackDown or sometime between now and Extreme Rules, they do a match between Asuka and Ellsworth. And if Asuka wins, she gets a title match against Carmella. One way or the other, she's getting another title shot against Carmella. Now, if Asuka goes into that match, if they do this match again at Extreme Rules and Asuka comes up short again, then I will be on board. Then I will say, okay, now you guys are right. Now WWE, I feel, missed the boat. That was their chance to put it on Asuka, and they didn't. Money in the Bank, I can understand why they didn't do it. So, at Extreme Rules, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm pretty confident that Asuka will be Ladies Champion before the summer ends. We finally saw the debut of Sanity. Finally, they have debuted on the main roster. They had a match with the Usos that never got started. Usos were cutting a promo, basically called out Sanity. Sanity came out, attacked the Usos early and jumped them, beat the hell out of them, and that was the end of the segment. So really good to see Sanity on the main roster finally, and crazy to see Eric Young on SmackDown. Remember when TNA was trying to make Eric Young like their version of Daniel Bryan? Now they're both on the same show. How crazy is that? I did mention also the potential or the likely feud now between Jeff Hardy and Shinsuke Nakamura earlier on when I was talking about Money in the Bank. They both cut a promo. Jeff Hardy did kind of one of those freaky studio promos where he had the face paint and the eye contacts in, and he's pissed about Shinsuke nutshotting him last week, and he is basically challenging Shinsuke, and he wants a shot at him, and now that's clearly going to lead to a title match. Speaking of Jeff Hardy, I did get a chance to take a look at the WWE 24 special that aired on the WWE Network, I think after Money in the Bank, on the Hardy Boys. And damn, was that a good show. I mean, all these 24 specials are amazing, but I highly recommend the Hardys one. It's really cool to see WWE being able to use all of this TNA footage. I don't know what sort of an agreement they have with Anthem or with GWN or whoever holds the rights to this footage and the use of this stuff. They have been showing a lot of TNA footage. They did a whole episode, Bruce and Conrad, Something to Wrestle With on the WWE Network on AJ Styles' career in TNA, and showed footage from every single feud he had. They did the same thing with the Hardy Boys. They talked about TNA a lot. They even talked about Jeff Hardy showing up at Bound for Glory or whatever pay-per-view it was when he was wrestling Sting and he was all fucked up, and Eric Bischoff had to come out there and call an audible and have Sting hold him down and pin him. They chronicled that a lot and showed a lot of that footage. So it was just, it was very emotional. I mean, it was a really good special, just seeing how far the Hardys have come, how long their careers have been, all of the struggles they've both dealt with in their life. I mean, both of them just really struggled to get their shit together, and they finally seem like they have now. They even addressed Jeff Hardy's recent DWI that he got just a couple of months back that was really scary for a lot of people. I know Matt Hardy was pissed, Rebby was pissed, and after Jeff has really gotten himself cleaned up after a couple of years, now he goes off and does something like that, and he owned up to it. I guess he's in therapy and counseling, and he's got some community service. He was able to avoid some jail time and avoid any sort of disciplinary action from WWE. So the special was very good, and if you haven't taken a look at it, please do. Later on SmackDown, they had a Shinsuke Nakamura promo backstage with Renee Young, and I love Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel. So funny watching Renee Young deal with him. She even said, she goes, "Shinsuke, are you going to pretend like you don't speak English again?" And he's like, no. He goes, "The reason I lost," I just laughed out loud when he said this, because he's so fucking cute when he says it. I don't know how to describe why I'm so intrigued with Shinsuke's work as a heel, but he always makes me laugh. But he said that the only reason that he lost the last man standing match to AJ Styles was because the referee counted way too fast, and he didn't count in Japanese. And that was it. And then he moved on to his promo on Jeff Hardy. So he pretty much just explained away why he couldn't win the title from AJ Styles. It was a stupid referee's fault, counted too fast, and the motherfucker needs to learn himself some Japanese. So Shinsuke, like I said earlier, I am right there with anybody that's disappointed that he didn't win the WWE title. I would have loved to see him be WWE champion. I'm just not necessarily pissed off that he's not. I don't necessarily think that WWE did anything wrong by not having him win the belt. Some guys just don't win the belt. A lot of guys got title shots in the 80s and 90s too. Some of them even got long world title programs and they never won the belt. Nobody was going on YouTube in 1990. Granted, it didn't exist, but nobody was going online or doing anything like that, saying how stupid the WWE's booking is and how it was the wrong thing to do and so deserves this and so needs that. It's just infuriating, the entitlement of these fucking fans in modern times. Fucking crazy. But anyway, Shinsuke, I think, will still have a belt around his waist, but instead of the WWE title, it's just going to be the US title instead. Whatever. Gauntlet match was the main event. This match was set up to determine the next challenger for AJ Styles at Extreme Rules. And the participants in this match, I believe, were Daniel Bryan, Big E, Samoa Joe, The Miz, and Rusev. So Daniel Bryan starts off the gauntlet match with Big E in an incredible match. It was great. It was really cool to see Big E shine, Daniel Bryan taking an ass-kicking, fighting so hard out there, that underdog mentality. I love that he had to start this match. So after he defeats Big E, then he's got to face Samoa Joe. And Daniel Bryan with a brilliant victory on Samoa Joe. They're on the outside of the ring. Samoa Joe, I believe, has him in the coquina clutch. And Daniel Bryan does that classic spot. That move that Bret Hart used to beat Roddy Piper at WrestleMania 8 and Stone Cold Steve Austin at Survivor Series 96, pushing off the top turnbuckle and falling backwards when he's in the sleeper. Well, Daniel Bryan did the same thing, only on the barricade, pushed off with his legs. Samoa Joe falls backwards. Daniel Bryan rolls out of the coquina clutch just as the referee is up to an 8 count, and he darts right in the ring before Samoa Joe even makes it back to his feet, and Samoa Joe gets counted out. So that's a good way to get Samoa Joe out of this match. And then, out of nowhere, the Bludgeon Brothers, the most random fucking thing ever on the show. Bludgeon Brothers show up and attack Daniel Bryan. Now, we knew something was up because the Bludgeon Brothers had a tag team title match against Gallows and Anderson earlier on in the show, and Daniel Bryan was coming out for the gauntlet match as the Bludgeon Brothers were leaving, and they had kind of a stare down. And I was thinking to myself, what the fuck is that about? So when they attacked Daniel Bryan in the middle of the gauntlet match, I was like, what sense does that make? Like, why even do this? I thought when the two of them had a stare down on the outside of the ring that was going to lead to something. Is that what WWE came up with to get Daniel Bryan injured so the Miz could come in and just pin him? Couldn't you have done that with anybody? What this makes me worried about now is Daniel Bryan's going to start a feud with the fucking Bludgeon Brothers, and he's going to go out there and find himself a tag team partner. I don't want to see that unless he brings back Kane. Unless Kane comes back and they reform Hell No and defeat the Bludgeon Brothers, we could see that. But Daniel Bryan, I want to see in the mix in the world title situation, or at least at the top of the card. He's clearly not going to get a shot at the title at Extreme Rules, but maybe he will at SummerSlam. The last thing I want to see Daniel Bryan doing right now is contending for the tag team titles. So I don't know if the Bludgeon Brothers attack is going to lead to something here in the future with Daniel Bryan, if he's going to have a match or potentially win the tag team titles with another opponent, or if it was just used, as a device to get Daniel Bryan out of the match. I really don't know. But after they attack Daniel Bryan, The Miz, of course, is the next one out. Fucking perfect. And he comes out and skull crush finales Daniel Bryan and gets the pin. And he is in the ring last to face Rusev. And Rusev is the last guy to enter. And the two of them now face each other in a one-on-one match. The winner faces AJ at Extreme Rules. I didn't see the finish of the gauntlet match coming. I did not have Rusev pegged to win this thing, and I thought it would be The Miz. As a matter of fact, I thought the finish with Daniel Bryan, just hitting him with a skull-crushing finale and pinning him, would have been a great way to end the match right there, and Miz could have challenged AJ for the title. I would have been fine with that, but it turns out to be Rusev. Rusev winds up beating The Miz with the accolade, and he's going to go on to face AJ Styles now at Extreme Rules. What a surprise. Wouldn't have seen that coming. So congrats to Rusev. I mean, here we thought this guy was going to get released not that long ago because of backstage heat and problems that he had, and now he's getting a title shot at a pay-per-view and could potentially win the WWE title. I don't think he's going to, and I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of a one-off match. I'm wondering if AJ is just going to face Rusev at Extreme Rules and then move on to somebody else at SummerSlam, or if the Rusev and AJ thing is going to continue. Part of me thinks that Rusev is as awesome as it is to see him win and go on to face AJ. Do any of us really expect him to win the title here, especially heading into SummerSlam after the run that AJ has had? If he's going to hold on to the belt this long, I think AJ either needs to drop it at SummerSlam, or if he doesn't drop it at SummerSlam, have him hold it for a year. But if not, I guess you have him go over Rusev here and then maybe face Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. You can't forget about The Miz. You can't discount The Miz. I think he is going to still find himself a way into the world title picture at some point, whether it's SummerSlam or Survivor Series. And I do think that with the men's title and the women's title at SummerSlam, I think one belt will be a one-on-one match and the other one will be a multi-man or multi-woman affair. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. Maybe on the Smackdown side of things, if you get a multi-man match, a triple threat, a fatal four-way for the title, and on the Raw side of things, you get Brock Lesnar versus either Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or Bobby Lashley or somebody like that. But anyway, all in all, I thought it was a really good weekend of wrestling. I thought NXT TakeOver came through. I thought Money in the Bank could have been a lot worse. Wasn't a bad show at all. I thought Raw bounced back from a horrible string of crappy shows. And I thought Smackdown was amazing. So really, I have very little to complain about as far as this week's TV goes. So you guys let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Before I get out of here, I do want to briefly mention, because a lot of you have been asking me about it, the big WWE Super Showdown that they have planned for October in Melbourne, Australia. And this is going to be a huge show that's going to be on pay-per-view and the WWE Network. Probably going to be very similar to what they did in Saudi Arabia. Going to be a show kind of like that. And the big match, or one of the big matches that have been announced for the show, is Triple H versus The Undertaker. And this is a match that they can announce way ahead of time because neither one of these two guys are doing anything on TV. And that's kind of why I think they announced Triple H and John Cena for the Greatest Royal Rumble so far in advance as well, because it's just going to depend where the storylines are as to what the card is going to be for the show. So if I had to guess, I would say this is going to be a carbon copy of what we saw at the Greatest Royal Rumble. It's going to be a huge, spectacular event with multiple title matches and a lot of shit going down. But really, at the end of the day and at the end of the show, we might not see anything that major happen. It might just be a big, fun show to give to that audience. Apparently, the stadium that they're going to be in is huge and could potentially hold 100,000 people. So this is yet another stadium show that the WWE is running this year, and it's going to be a big deal. And the massive time difference with Australia, I'm not sure what time this is going to air for me in California, probably sometime very early in the morning. But it is a Saturday, so most likely I will take that day off, watch the show, and do some live streaming. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you so very, very much for listening. And like I said, give me all your opinions in the comments below. I'll be interested to read them, and I will talk to you guys in just a couple of days. Until next time, peace.